Welcome in to another episode of the 5280 podcast. It is a two-man show here tonight. It is myself and Gage that will be manning the microphone or controls over here on the MHRT network of the 5280 podcast. The full squad hopefully will be back tomorrow. And I guess we should say TBD maybe next week. That's boring if we don't have things to talk about, which I'm sure. Given of what's going to be happening tomorrow, we'll have a lot to talk about, next week with the schedule release and everything. But no, it's going to be a lot of fun. The schedule release is expected to come out tomorrow, and obviously, mainly Broncos, the podcast that I do over at 7:30, we'll do a full on schedule release for you, maybe a brief predictions and whatnot, but. We do have some games to at least talk about, so we're going to at least, do a brief rundown of course, with that and everything. But we have a lot to talk about, and before we dive into any of that, again, make sure you hit that subscribe button for MHRT Network. Follow both Gage and I over there on the X Twitter platform, and obviously go check out the show that he does over there at Broncos Syndicate. So at Gage Madrid NFL and myself at Cameron Parker PO. Before we dive into anything, of course, Gage, how are you doing? You're surviving the heat as much as I am?
Yeah, we were discussing this in the green room. The weather here in Denver has been absolutely terrible. Well, not terrible if you enjoy 80-plus degree heat and not a cloud in the sky. But if you don't enjoy that like Cam and myself, it is miserable. And as you can tell, I am of the bigger frame, and this is not big guy friendly weather, damn it. But aside from that, I've been really good. The Broncos have been back in the building, at least the rookies have, for Rookie Minicamp. So there's been a lot to cover, and it's been a lot of fun these past couple of weeks. So yeah, excited to dive into this pod.
It's really got nothing to do with us like truly hating this weather, because it is really nice weather. It's just when it boils down to our blood, we are fall people, man. Like we love nothing but fall. And obviously the boys of fall are back as it comes to the Rookie Minicamp. Let's dive into at least some of the early, news and notes, if you will. One of the notes certainly that was brought to our attention was little Jordan Humphrey was cut by the New York Giants. Well, we could put that one to bed, for all the little Jordan Humphrey stands that are out there in Broncos country. He signed with the Giants again. I believe it was yesterday he signed with the Giants. Desmond Ridder, the quarterback who was with the Atlanta Falcons, then signed with the Las Vegas Raiders, who was strip sacked by Nick Bonito in that Raiders game to seal the deal for the Denver Broncos. Was going to join Broncos Rookie Minicamp, but he decided not to partake in minicamp. It was kind of like one of those like, is it going to happen or things? And so in essence, they replaced Desmond Ridder with Ian Book. What's up, Muhammad? How you doing, man? So good to see you. So good to talk ball with you and every single member of Broncos country that's going to be in the stream here tonight. Alex Singleton should be ready for training camp. Obviously, the other news, of course, that broke within the last 24 hours, 48 hours was Kareem Jackson is still pursuing a career in the NFL. However, at least during Broncos rookie minicamp or during the early stages of minicamp, he's going to be on staff for the Denver Broncos, and obviously he's not the only one that's a former player that is on staff. Todd Davis joined the Denver Broncos on staff. Obviously a little bit larger role for Davis, and this is just going to end up being a scout for the Broncos. And actually news broke earlier about like an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, speaking of staff additions, of Cameron Williams, the addition of the Broncos finally upgrading their front office as well. And they needed to fill 4 roles, their Gage. And so certainly those are the early news and notes, if you will. But what kind of catches your eye there for some of those early, news and notes we just talked about there?
So obviously a lot to unpack there. Starting off with the Desmond Ridder thing, Sean Payton kind of indicated in his press conference that Ritter's thinking about the next steps in his career, i.e. possible retirement. So
Interesting.
yeah, best of luck to him in whatever he decides to pursue moving forward. I'm not even kidding when I say I'd love to see him in the UFL because I think he's a talented player. He just needs more playing time. So yeah, man, best of luck to him, whatever he decides to do. Obviously, Kareem Jackson being back with the team in a potential scouting role. Right now, it's just during rookie minicamp. Kareem hasn't quite decided what he wants to do as far as his playing career is concerned, but he is at least broaching the idea of coming back to Denver full-time as a scout on George Payton's staff, not Sean Payton's staff like Todd Davis is on the coaching side, because there is that little bit of friction there between Sean and Kareem Jackson. In this role, they wouldn't exactly have to see each other too often except during the offseason. So, yeah, man, sounds like an excellent role for him, and I love K-Jack, would love to have him back in the building. What else did we touch on there? It kind of went over my head.
Oh no, you're good. The Alex Singleton should be ready for training camp, and also Dre Greenlaw. That was the other linebacker news.
Yes, that was the other big one.
Is also expected to be ready for camp. Obviously, there was some false reporting. That's putting it nicely. Some false reporting by the 49ers brass or reporters down there. I'm just going to call it for what it is. I'm a bit perturbed by the fact that they would falsify information like that. It was nothing. His quad injury is expected to be a full recovery and be ready for training camp. So the linebacker duo, the expected linebacker starting duo of Alex Singleton and Greenlaw, is expected to be full go.
Yep. And what's funny about the whole Dre Greenlaw thing is Sean Payton's active on social media. He reads this stuff, and he said in his press conference that sometimes I want to engage with this stuff. Sometimes he didn't really finish the sentence, but sometimes it makes me want to, he had to hold back a little bit there. And I just thought that was kind of funny that Sean Payton wanted to get on Twitter and call bullshit on those reports, but he refrained himself from doing it just for competitive reasons. But he did assure everybody that Dre Greenlaw is going to be ready to go. It sounds like just a minor strain. Nothing's torn completely. Obviously, a strain is a minor tear, but it's nothing overtly severe, and he will be ready to go for training camp. And then with Singleton coming back, we'll see how he's eased in, coming off of the ACL, which happened in week 3. They might not have him be full go at the start of training camp. They might ease him in, maybe put him on a pitch count to begin preseason. And that way, week 1, he is full-blown ready to go. So I think that's kind of going to be the plan with Alex Singleton long-term.
What's up, Clayton? He is the MHRT Network super fan, or at least one of them, of course. Just as Clayton is mentioning, yes, make sure you hit that like button and share. Have your friends tell you their friends about the MHRT Network page. It is certainly, as always, to get a chance to talk ball with not just Clayton, but every single Bronco fan here in the stream. Obviously, there is the big talking point, and you touched a little bit about this as far as an idea, and it's been going around as of late, and obviously Sean Payton drafted him, but it is the notion of Trey Hendrickson. And why do I bring up Trey Hendrickson? Well, because the asking price for Nick Bonito is around $20 million. I think this firm rumor, if you want to call a rumor firm or whatever, that feels like kind of oxymoronic, but is $23 million per year. That is kind of like the firm, starting point, if you will. You and I briefly touched about this. Look, we are not money savvy. We'll just say that we are certainly not money savvy, but it feels like to me, Gage, that if the Broncos were to swing something like this for Trey Hendrickson, one, they might have to tweak their defensive scheme a little bit to fit Hendrickson. And two, you do have to ship off a player, and one that you probably don't want to pay to bring in a guy like this that you would want to pay. And therein lies Nick Bonito and Trey Hendrickson talk.
Yep. So this has been kind of some social media conversations that have been happening these past couple of days. It all started earlier today, especially. Well, it started a few days ago, but it really came to a head today when Trey Hendrickson spoke to Cincinnati media for over 20 minutes and said that the Bengals have been lowballing him and have been disrespecting him since the beginning of the negotiation process, where they basically want him to take a team-friendly deal like he did a couple of years ago and just kick the can down the road. And the problem is the Bengals have failed to surround him with adequate other players on the defensive side of the ball like they promised they would do when he took the team-friendly deal. So he's basically said, no more of that. You guys need to either crap and pay me or get off the pot. It's that simple. And the Bengals are a notoriously cheap organization. I don't think they're ultimately going to pay him. We'll see what materializes, but I think that a trade could be in the possible conversation here, and that has been something that has been discussed on social media with Broncos Twitter is, should they trade for Trey Hendrickson? Do I think it ultimately happens? No, I don't. But like Cam said, if you were to make a move for Hendrickson, you would probably have to move on from Nick Bonito. Would you send him to Cincinnati in a trade for Hendrickson? Or would you just move on from him the following offseason and not pay him long term? I don't know. But bringing in Trey Hendrickson would mean that you're moving on from Nick Bonito. So you're basically swapping one player who needs to get paid with another player who needs to get paid. Mm-hmm. And another thing, like Cam said, they would have to tweak their defensive scheme a little bit in order to fit Trey Hendrickson. Hendrickson is pretty much his whole career been a three-point stance, hand in the dirt, 4-3 edge rusher. That's not the scheme that Denver runs. Denver runs a 3-4 where their edge rushers are standing up, rushing off of the edge from a wide 9. So I don't think that Trey Hendrickson makes sense on a few different levels. The finances, the schematics, the only connection to Denver is Sean Payton, who was his head coach when he was drafted in 2017. But yeah, man, I don't think it makes sense for the Denver Broncos. What say you, Cam?
Yeah, it's one where I obviously would be okay with it in the sense of like this would be Sean Payton's decision. This would be the team's decision. It would just be one that would be a bit interesting. You know, we're talking about an ascending player as well. We're talking about an ascending player in Bonito and younger. And it would be one, if you're kind of like talking in relative terms, you know, I feel like the $23 million a year would be a little bit cheaper than what you're going to be also, paying Trey Hendrickson as well. So I think it's one of those cases where I would much rather focus, as David mentions there in the comments, about paying our own guys first, and that is the interesting thing. And I posed this on X and Twitter actually just a few moments before we went live. And I know we want to get to the rookie minicamp thing, but because there's so much extension stuff like this, Gage, it's at least worth still bringing it up to the table. And this has been a thing on social media as of late, which is when you think of like the priorities of these free agents, or, is there a chance where the Broncos actually let the main three go, or one of the main three go, and then they basically pay two of their three? I am still under the impression that they're going to do their darndest to pay all three if they can. I do believe if there is one, if you're going to put it within realm of moving on, and I know I wasn't a huge fan projecting it wise for him to be the replacement down the line, being Pat Bryant. Courtland Sutton probably would feel like your odd man out, probably of those three, but I still am very certain, if it seems like they're going to try their hardest to get something done with the three of them, which of course everybody knows: Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, and Courtland Sutton. But I want to throw a nice little wrinkle in this, and this is what I tweeted a few moments ago. Depending on the year that Evan Ingram has, do you sign him to a somewhat extension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a conversation you're going to have. So, obviously, with Courtland Sutton, like you mentioned, Pat Bryant does have some of those ex-receiver type tools. He could fill that role, but there's some other roles that we'd kind of like to see Bryant fill ahead of that role. Mm-hmm. But you're going to have to make this decision on Courtland Sutton sooner rather than later. Out of the big three players that need extensions, you need to get your trench players done first, because if you do not have sound fundamental ball in the trenches, then you're not going to win football games. I understand that everybody wants to pay the big, sexy, flashy players like receivers and running backs and all that stuff, but if you're not sound in the trenches, then you are not going to be a competitive football team. With Sutton, he's got the chemistry with Bo Nix, and he clearly loves Denver. He's a leader in the locker room. He's somebody that I feel like the Broncos would be worse off if they didn't have on their roster. So he's the guy that I think is the third priority in terms of getting an extension done, but I actually think that he might get extended before a guy like Zach Allen does, because I think he might be easier to extend. Allen might be commanding a little bit more top-of-the-line defensive end, interior defensive line money, and he might be waiting to see some of these other guys get paid before he gets his deal. I think Sutton kind of knows where his market stands at this point, and if the Denver Broncos do want to keep him long-term, then I think that they'll get the extension done with him maybe sooner rather than later, even though we are saying that he's third on the priority list.
Yeah, and obviously, Alex, I would tend to agree this talk is a bit premature. It's just with what you see and read on social media, at least through the Broncos Twitter point of view, it is very prevalent in terms of a lot of talking points with a lot of fans, and so it's going to make for of course talking piece when you have the forum like this. So. But I would tend to agree it's a tad bit premature. And to David's point, there's at least a window for you. When we talk about like Benito, like to where I'm okay with it. Like if there's one player, when you look at it in a sense, maybe you could argue Courtland in this as well. But if there's one player of those three that you might be able to kind of be flexible with, if you will, and not extend him until maybe like the midway point of that season, if you will, meaning 2025, and then you extend him, it would be Nick Benito, because of the fact that he is an ascending player, but this was the first like dominant Von Miller-esque year that we had seen really since an edge rusher or pass rusher since Von. So it would be kind of fitting that, say, like for Nick to be like, go out and prove it one more time again. But if you get to the point where the midway point of the season where it's like, you got to extend him now, and they've done that. The Broncos have done that. Benito would be the one, certainly, that I would probably think that is in that category.
Yeah. And I could see the team being in the camp of wanting him to prove it for one more year. There's a stat out there that I don't think a lot of people in Broncos country are going to like. Nick Benito led the NFL last year in garbage time sacks, which were sacks that happened when the team was up by 3 scores or more. So I don't know if that is something that the team is taking into account. And additionally, there are some case studies of edge rushers having one productive year, getting paid, and then not having the same level of production. Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking of, Vic Beasley. So, yeah, that is kind of a cautionary tale there for the Denver Broncos, and maybe they want Benito to go out there and prove it for one more year. If we're at week 8 and he's got 6 or 7 sacks by that point, then the conversation's over. You pay him. But if we get to week 8 of next year and he's only got like 2 sacks and his pressures have gone down, then I think we need to let it play out for the rest of the year and see if he can return to his Pro Bowl and All-Pro level form.
Yeah. So but I think if you're putting our projective hats on, of for Gage and I think there's probably a sense where they would like to get all three of them done at some point before week 1.
Yeah.
I think ideally that would be what they would like to do. Obviously Malcolm Roach is in that conversation. JFM is in that conversation, of course. And so we'll see if they're able to get something done with JFM or even Roach. I would argue Roach might actually be a little bit above him, in terms of, respective, extension and stuff like that. But I think in moving forward, this is where it gets to be exciting. Not to dive too much into the John Franklin Myers of the respective future, if you will, but we had a nice little look into the future of the Denver Broncos, and that would be rookie minicamp. And obviously, us fans are not privileged to be there and cover rookie minicamp. Obviously, it would be quite a joy for both you and I to have that opportunity to cover rookie minicamp. That said, though, there was quite a bit of some nuggets that came from rookie minicamp. And there were some undrafted free agents, certainly, that we're going to end up, talking about. And so we kind of figured we might as well lump everything together, all into one, because the undrafted free agents, they're exciting. Some of those signings are certainly making its way, at least in that rookie minicamp. Let's start first with on the back end of a certain draft class, because it's starting to kind of sound like Sean Payton really, really likes Caleb Lawner.
Mm-hmm.
Like the projection of possibly him and him being used in special teams role is at least on that table.
Which is huge, man. If you could get him on a special teams role in year 1, then that's even more development than I would have expected in year 1. But offensively, he had a nice catch over the middle in rookie minicamp. So he's making plays. He's not just a red zone jump ball guy that we saw on tape coming out, because there was basically 4 snaps of his tape out there, and that's about it. So the Broncos, if they can find other ways to utilize him, such as a receiving threat over the middle or on special teams, that would be huge. But yeah, Sean Payton talked him up really hard in his press conference, and you can tell that there's a reason why the Broncos were comfortable spending a draft pick on him when the entire NFL was kind of like, who's this cat? Except for the Colts, who had a deal ready for him as an undrafted free agent.
Right. And it begs the question. I know I posed it a little bit as far as Evan Ingram, but that would be the case of why you don't extend him. If you are that high on a player like that, I think that the thing with Lawner is you can't teach the athleticism that he has. What you can teach is still kind of teach him a little bit of the game, right? Like, if you can get him to be a bit of a blocker, if you can get him to be a little bit more refined route runner, a little bit more into the game, you're talking about a resurgence that the Broncos have not had in a basketball player project at tight end since Orange Julius, and Julius Thomas. And that should excite a lot of Bronco fans. And I know that at least at the time, it was kind of, and it probably still is, that like, who is this guy? And like, what exactly are they going to end up getting? And if you guys actually really want a really good breakdown, Jordan, who does this stuff with Mainly Broncos, is a basketball coach, and he did a nice little 4.5-minute breakdown of what to expect and develop, if you will, if he was a coach for Caleb Lawner going into the next level. So that was a really nice little breakdown there. So that's exciting prospects, if you will, of truly like into the future with a guy like Caleb Lawner. But let's talk about the right now, like the right now. And that is guys like RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant, two of the arguably the most criticized draft picks of the entire class, because everybody wanted the top 5 of the bunch, myself included, if you will, wanted Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson, Omarion Hampton, possibly Ashton Genty. They wanted Broncos country wanted at least one of those top 5 guys, right? Didn't exactly happen, but you break it down, you look at Harvey, you break down all of his stats and everything that it is, Gage, and you see the comments that Sean Payton's starting to kind of basically say, we really have a 3-down back in the making, possibly with RJ Harvey. And it sounds like he's even comfortable overall with the prospects of him even in pass pro, which is a big deal.
It is. It really is. I mean, it's starting to look like RJ Harvey is going to be the real deal at this level. That jump cut is beautiful. It is a work of art. The Broncos are very tight-lipped in terms of what they release to the media or what they let the media themselves release. And there were some clips that came out from training camp of them doing drills. It wasn't anything that was quote-unquote real football, but RJ Harvey was able to showcase that jump cut in some of these clips, and it just makes you drool, man. And he had a couple of really nice plays, according to sources who were there at Rookie Minicamp. He caught a wheel route. That was something that was known about him coming out of the draft, was that he was really good at running the wheel route. So I'm really excited about that. Sean Payton talked about how he does have promise in pass protection, but just because you have an extra guy in pass protection doesn't mean it's going to be a running back. Sometimes you can keep a tight end in there. Sean Payton almost said too much there in that press conference. He kind of had to dial back what he was saying a little bit to not give away schematics, but they do feel comfortable about him in pass protection. But just because he's in doesn't necessarily mean he's going to pass protect. You don't want tells about what a certain guy is going to do when he's in. Like when Samaje Perine was in, you knew it was going to be a pass play because he was not going to run the ball very often. He was either going to stay in the block or he was going to go out in the pattern and run a route. That's not going to be a problem with RJ Harvey, and that's what gives him sort of Joker-like traits is you don't know what he's going to do any given time he's on the field. So, yeah, man, probably the biggest star of Rookie Minicamp was RJ Harvey, but there were other guys such as Pat Bryant who also made a big-time impact. Some of the clips that we saw, he moves so well laterally. And this is the thing that I love to say with people who are like, oh, he runs a 4.6 40. It's not track, people. He's not running from a three-point stance in the ground. He's running from a wide receiver stance, and it's how fast he can cut and how fast he can stop on a dime. And Pat Bryant made some really nice plays in Rookie Minicamp. Went up and absolutely mossed Jahdae Barron, who had really nice coverage on the play. So, yeah, man, RJ Harvey, Pat Bryant, again, like you said, two of the most criticized picks of this year's draft class were two of the biggest stars of Rookie Minicamp.
And if you're a Bronco fan, you should be really excited about what you're going to be seeing with Harvey, because it's going to finally allow you to have not just your tight end joker, but your running back joker. And I think that, while at UCF, I think that was more schematic than anything, you are going to see and Gage has mentioned this before, but you are going to see a bit more creativity with how they're going to use the passing game, which is so fun to say, because, if there is one particular area where the Broncos, and they've gotten better under Payton, but like there's one area where they can exponentially get better, is that screen game, or just simply relying on a running back in the passing game. Like, obviously everybody goes to the comparisons of RJ Harvey and Bucky Irving, right? But I think that you see the way he runs, you see the way that he's so crafty, and you can understand why it took the Broncos, or specifically Sean Payton, to be so quick and sold on a guy like RJ Harvey specifically. And I know it seems like we're beating a dead horse with the topic, but you see with what they've done in terms of falling in love with Ashton Genty. Well, if you're seeing what looks like a carbon copy of Ashton Genty in that what was soon to be second round, like that is a big deal. So yes, to anybody that is, in the comments mentioning like about having Ingram or just even Harvey, like just having a semblance of a tight end and running back impact for this type of offense will just take this offense to new heights. Just that to leaving it that short. But then you factor in some of these weapons, that Sean Payton has, like Pat Bryant. Now, obviously, Harvey and Bryant were the most criticized. There was one draft pick who was the most criticized, and that was Pat Bryant. And he, I believe it was Lammy and Mason who made the point of the highlight that Bryant made a unbelievable catch on Jahdae Barron. And, and that was one where you wish you would have seen the highlight of it. But, the way they describe it was a picturesque coverage. And then you factor in, Bryant and the reliable hands that he had at Illinois, translating to this rookie minicamp and catching a pass that, frankly, no wide receiver probably should have caught in that ball, and he did. So that should give you at least some prospects of it into the future. And then you mentioned a bit earlier there, Gage, about he's a bit of a savvy route runner. He is a bit of a savvy route runner, and I think that while he seems a bit slow, like molasses in January, he's a bit of a savvy route runner when it comes to running routes, and I think that is going to be a big thing because, I think as far as the offense, having that savvy route runner is something this team, not to trigger too much of the chat, but that this team has desperately needed since trading away Jerry Jeudy.
Mm-hmm. And also something that we haven't really had since Tim Patrick either. The more and more I watch Pat Bryant, the more and more I see Tim Patrick with the route running, the blocking, just the willingness to do the dirty work. I just feel like the Broncos hit a home run with this pick. And I know it's still early. We haven't seen him in training camp or in a game situation yet, but Pat Bryant is definitely passing the smell test so far.
He is. And he might actually go down as a steal of the entire draft. Mm-hmm. And there were some other takeaways. It certainly seems like Q Robinson not only passes the test of what is going to be an impact on special teams, but he's already got the aura. He's got the number 51, but he's got the arm brace over there on his left arm. But maybe not too much buzz on him from rookie minicamp, aside from the fact that they really like what they see and that he's going to be a really strong special teams impact. There, and then obviously Savion Jones. I know that's the pick that you love so much. Mm-hmm. Really not a whole lot there in terms of some conversations, there with rookie minicamp. There was, however, some discussion of some players in that undrafted free agency list. Once you go and take it off with one of those players that you love so much.
My guy, Johnny Walker. I got to scout him in person at the Shrine Bowl, and when I first saw him doing pass rush drills in the pit, he reminded me of sort of like a dollar store Diet Coke version of Nick Bonito. It kind of helped that he's also got dreadlocks and wears the number 15, but his bend, his get off, his explosiveness, his athleticism, all of it reminded me of Nick Bonito. Can he develop into that caliber player? I don't know, but clearly he caught the Broncos' eye, and a report coming out of minicamp from Cecil Lammy and Andrew Mason said that the Broncos really like him. They were saying that, Gage, you might be onto something here with this Johnny Walker guy, and I'm going to take full credit as the first guy in Broncos media to spot him, because that is my dude, and I'm super excited for what he is going to bring, especially in training camp, because he might be one of those guys, even though the Broncos are deep at edge rusher, it might be tough to move on from him because somebody's going to scoop him up if you expose him to the waiver wire.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other guy that's going to be interesting to, follow as we get closer is his Missouri teammate. Christian Williams. I think he's going to be another interesting one. At least at that point, when you see some of the measurables, he's a bit under, 300. I think that when you see it, he can still bulk up just a little bit, but when you look at it just overall, he adds, I think, a bit of an element where, for as much as we talk about Savion Jones or even some players on that interior like Zach Allen, he adds that other element to you that's obviously not Johnny Walker, but he's going to maybe push guys like a Jordan Jackson, right? Or an Awama Wazirike, who we know is already on the bubble, not just from betting on himself, literally, but like from literally betting on himself, and when you are betting on yourself, it means you are on the roster bubble. And so I think he's going to be such a fun player, in that class. And there really wasn't a lot of buzz, if you will, from that undrafted free agency class, except for Johnny Walker. That said, though, we haven't really had a chance to dive too much into that undrafted free agency signings, Gage, and obviously you touched a bit about Johnny Walker, but I want to know, what are your thoughts on one of my players, and that would be Karen Reed?
Ooh, yeah. No, I definitely think that he's going to have a chance to come in here and compete, man. The back end of that linebacker room definitely could use another body, and a guy like Lavelle Bailey could possibly be on the bubble here if Reed is able to showcase in camp. We didn't really hear too much about him, but yeah, he could be a guy that pushes a guy like Lavelle Bailey or maybe even Drew Sanders in that linebacker room.
He is certainly a player, and aside from the fact that apparently the Broncos, they love Utah. Apparently,
yeah, dude.
They signed another tight end just like a few days ago, like Fotheringham, real name, from Utah. I don't know how much that's gonna impact the roster, but he's from Utah. They have Lavelle Bailey from Utah. They had Tim Patrick.
Lavelle was from Utah too. Jesus.
And then, of course, there's Garrett Bowles, who came from Utah. That was obviously pre-Sean Payton. And, of course, Tim Patrick was pre-Sean Payton. So there is something developmental, with the scouting process in the area and whatever, from, the scouting development team to all the way over to head coach. They love just some Utah players. And I think Karen Reed is going to be one of those players that we kind of fall in love with. I mean, he sits about only like 6 foot compared to like relative to the Broncos linebacker room. That's like right on par. Because like when Josie Jewell was here, he was 6 foot. Singleton was 6 foot. Really, the only guy who really stood above everybody else was Drew Sanders because he's like 6'5". But Reed will fit in nicely, but he's like 230. He's got a lot of twitch to him, a lot of athleticism to him, or underrated athleticism, if you will. But like I think it's maybe not necessarily a lot of athleticism that jumps off the page, but his instincts and the high IQ that you see just really jumps off the page. Like it really jumps off. So I'm really excited to see him. And then, of course, we would be remiss, if we didn't talk about some of these receivers, and that would be, if there is a player, and I know a lot of focus has certainly been on the one wide receiver from Toledo, but if there is one wide receiver that I feel like could be a stash and protect a little bit if you can, and develop, it would be Jaquan Davis from North Carolina Central. Like he is 6'4". So like as much as we talk about the measurables of like Isaiah Nair when you bring it up, like 6'4", 220 pounds. As much as we talk about that, and we see the just overall, we see the measurables of 6'4", 220, and he runs a 4.4.
Yeah.
Like, that is just stuff you don't see very often. And for as much as the development may not necessarily be there just yet, that is certainly a player that you probably want to try your darndest to stash and develop, because that is one where if you are projecting far, far, far into the future, that is wide receiver 1 traits.
Yeah. It really is, man. Like, he's got some rare tools, and he didn't really get a whole lot of notice because he was at a small school like North Carolina Central, but he's got the athleticism, he's got the catch radius, he's got the physical tools. But like Vic Fangio says, just because you have the tools doesn't mean you're a carpenter. We'll see if this guy can translate onto the field, but yeah, I do like Davis as well.
Obviously, one of the moves that he was a undrafted free agent and they cut him was I believe was Kendall Bowler from Florida A&M. They decided to move on from him, but I mean, all in all, I think you have to be excited, about the prospects and of the rookie class. And look, if you're sickos like Gage and I, where we kind of follow it along. And, it's one of the reasons why we love the preseason so much, and I know that there are some people out there that don't enjoy watching, maybe at times like the first preseason game, second preseason game, or even the third preseason game. Like, I love watching this because that is the future of Broncos country. And so when you get a chance to see basically players fight and die for like the final roster spots, that lights me up, because like, I mean, not to get too much motivational, but like, that is like you're on your last leg fighting for every inch that you can for a job. And so to see everybody kind of play at such a high level there really excites me. So if you were to look at this undrafted free agency pool, though, aside from Johnny Walker or Karen Reed, but who do you feel like if you're going to put your money in is going to be on this Denver Broncos roster?
I actually kind of got a little bit of sleeper here. Courtney Jackson, the wide receiver out of Arkansas State. This dude has legit 4.3 speed. Yeah. I mean, he could potentially develop into our long-term kick returner, if nothing else. A guy with that kind of speed, you will find ways to get him the football. He's a tick faster than Marvin Mims. He's a tick faster than Troy Franklin. So, yeah, keep an eye on Courtney Jackson. This cat can fly.
Yeah, I think I might have said Christian Williams last week, but I think I am going to go with Jaquin Davis. I'm going to just continue the hive. Like there is just something there that if you,
I think it's Joaquin Davis, like Joaquin Phoenix.
Like Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah. So I think as far as Joaquin Davis, I'm going to go with there. I'm going to continue the hive. I'm going to continue pumping it up. I think if you could be able to get those types of traits in the building at 6'4", and plus we know Sean loves those types of bodies. Like, he loves those types of, with a wide receiver. And I think with the way it's going to unfold, it's going to be interesting to see those three wide receivers, how it all shakes out, because you look up statistically, Newton had the better year of anybody that's of those three. Like, Newton had the best year, and not Pro Football Focus grades are nothing really. But if you're really looking at it, he was in the top 20 nationally of 2024 in terms of Pro Football Focus grades. And who was 10th? Pat Bryant. So I'm not saying that like the Broncos follow, Pro Football Focus maybe to a T, but like having like players in your room that are rookies that are like in the top 25, if you will, of those types of receiving grades, that's saying something at least. And I think even too, I think Bryant and maybe even Newton were like in the top 30 of like yards per route run or something like that. So they probably did their true scouting, and so it's going to be really interesting. And obviously, they do have some players that are offensive linemen that are going to be worth following along as well. Clay Webb certainly comes to mind. Don't look up his story.
Don't do it.
But he's an interesting one just from the simple fact, and it's something that I think Gage and I have mentioned before, even on the show, is that the center position is kind of like an underrated need for this team. We certainly wish Wattenberg can take that step up, or Forsyth, can take a stranglehold on the position. But if, it doesn't happen and that you got a bit of a wide open door, if you will, Clay Webb, is really, aside from Forsyth, before he came into the NFL and played with the Broncos, he was a pure center. And Webb now at this point is the only pure center on the Denver Broncos right now. And if you're talking about a player that, and projecting and stuff, like maybe they have something here with Clay Webb. Obviously another player too would be the the one from Oklahoma State. The name is kind of escaping me right now.
Who is that cat? I know who you're talking about. Who is he? He's the offensive tackle, right?
Yeah, Joe Michalski.
Yeah.
From Oklahoma State. Clay Webb from Jacksonville State. And then obviously another one that's going to be worth following too, and that is Xavier Truss from Georgia. Truss is a right tackle, and that is something I think if you are looking into projective development for that room and for what might happen with McGlinchey down the line. We saw Alex Pavlovsky really prove to be something when McGlinchey went down, but that room is still very much kind of an open door a little bit for some of those guys. So it's going to be a competition. Pavlovsky's he's still going to have to be able to run away with this to win it. But Frank Crum, Xavier Truss, and obviously Alex Pavlovsky, that's going to be quite the the battle, if you will, for that right tackle spot or even swing tackle spot.
Yeah, and I believe Matt Parrott's still in the building, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's going to be a really healthy competition there. I had a 5th round grade on Truss. I thought he could have very easily been drafted. So very fortunate to get him in undrafted free agency. And yeah, his pass protection is really, really good. Run blocking, can get a little dicey, but I think that just as a pure pass protection guy, Xavier Truss could fill a really important role for you.
Yeah. And then obviously final things to certainly talk about. As we said, the schedule release is tomorrow. And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about two of the things that are official. And that is the Denver Broncos do have a primetime game. This was one of the primetime games. I'd mentioned they're going to have multiple. They have a primetime game on Christmas Day. Cue up the famous the war gif of the guy just staring out, and giving me PTSD of, oh no, another Christmas Day game.
It's like the GTA meme. Oh shit, here we go again.
Right. So the Denver Broncos will play the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City on Christmas Day. And then of course, they take a trip across the pond, if you will, and they go play in Tottenham Stadium down there in London for a London game against the New York Jets. So that's certainly going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully it's not a monsoon like it was, down there on, MetLife Stadium, because obviously the Jets and Giants share a stadium. Hopefully it's not as much of a monsoon there. But those are the two known, games there. So my question for you, Gage, and, when we're kind of wrapping up the show here in just a little bit here, is when you look strictly at that game against the Jets, I would venture to guess that means a bye is after that, or if not, they have maybe a Monday night game or something. Because like, there's no way. I don't think that they would do something to where it's like, okay, we're going to have that London game, and then that next week, we're going to have that game on Sundays. Like, I would venture to guess that they're at least going to have something, to where they'll do either a bye week or they'll, schedule something, for a game on Monday or something.
So that's actually the team's choice. You can choose if you're going overseas what you want to do the following week. Do you want your bye or do you want to play? I don't know what Sean Payton's going to pick, honestly. My gut kind of says he might pick to play. He might not want to lose momentum early.
He kind of did that with that Chargers, like adding that third extra Thursday night game, which backfired. But
still, I mean, history suggests that they might play. I think Payton kind of wants his bye week a little bit later on. That way, when you're really getting into the home stretch of the season, like last year when it was in week 14, you could get healthy at the right time. So I don't know, man. I think Payton might choose to not have it there. But as far as that game itself is concerned, there is going to be a lot of intrigue and storyline there. Obviously, the connections with George Payton and Darren Muji. But with the New York Jets, you got to figure, like, what is this team going to look like now with Aaron Glenn as their head coach, another former Sean Payton protege. So it's going to be teacher versus student once again, Justin Fields at quarterback. This is going to be a really intriguing game. Like, what is this Jets team going to look like?
And look, I've obviously been at times a bit harsh with Fields, but everybody knows, I've also been one, I'm kind of a Fields apologist to a certain degree. I think that he just was handed a raw deal. He didn't play great, at all. He didn't play great at all. But it's one where you put him in the right system and a system that's built enough around him, he could surprise some people. And so that's why I think of all the signings, Sam Darnold to Seattle, or some of these other ones. Justin Fields with the Jets is the one I'm circled myself as far as the one that I think as far as the highest ceiling and everything as far as it can go. Because if that hits for you, you're talking about a really a well-constructed offense and everything. So I think for Fields, that's one, you already have his center, right? You've already have. I don't know if they played together, if you will, but he's already got an Ohio State center with him, and arguably one of the best young centers in the National Football League. He's got Garrett Wilson, who he's already played with. They haven't necessarily made the decision to move on from Allen Lazard just yet. They do have some under the radar weapons, I think, enough to get them by. And then, of course, the tight end position, we'll certainly see what happens there. But I very much like the way that the Jets have been really constructed there. And then obviously defensively, the depth they've had defensively, they've had some really rough injuries there, but their depth is no joke from that pass rusher side of things. So I'm very curious to see, how it all shakes out with the Jets. So, and everybody knows, I like to do these podcasts with this Jets guy, since apparently the Broncos play the Jets every single year. So it'll be kind of nice to do a nice little Jets, Bronco podcast, if you will, and talking about the game, maybe post and pre. So that's always kind of fun. And then, of course, is that Christmas game, yes, to victory lap. That would be the best Christmas gift, is handing the Chiefs a big fat L, or in the vein of the now fired Michael Malone, take that L all the way out, as we head over to Denver, if you will, from Christmas. I will say, this is where I always feel like our conversations go when you talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Broncos in terms of facing off with one another. I think we've had this conversation a little bit too before, Gage. It's the Broncos have significantly closed the gap. And it's not just them. The Chargers have closed the gap. The Raiders have certainly closed the gap with not just the Chiefs a little bit, but, the other people, in that division. I think the Raiders still have a ways to go, if you will. But, there is a road. There is a legitimate road. And call it orange, color glasses or whatever. but there's a certain road that's going to be leading to the idea that the Broncos can sweep the Kansas City Chiefs this year.
Yeah, they definitely can. When you look at this Broncos roster, they've improved in multiple different areas, and you could argue that the Chiefs have regressed in multiple different areas. This is going to be a big-time game here on Christmas Day, because if the Broncos win this, if everything has gone to plan for them in the season, this could be the game that decides the AFC West. It really could. So I'm happy that the league put this game where they did. We've seen that the Broncos can compete with the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Bo Nix led what should have been a game-winning drive, and we had that special teams mess up at the end with the blocked field goal. But if that hadn't happened, we'd be sitting here talking about how Bo Nix went into Arrowhead and led the Broncos to a win against the Chiefs. I don't count that last game because that was a JV squad with fourth and fifth stringers with Carson Wentz at quarterback. So I really don't count that game. But what Bo Nix was able to do in that game at Arrowhead, I mean, dude, the Broncos can totally sweep the Chiefs this year. Will they? We'll see. But I'm glad that they put this game where they did, because this is going to be a big-time test and a chance for the Broncos to rewrite history with their misfortune on Christmas games. Obviously, 2016, a year removed from the Broncos winning the Super Bowl, they went to Kansas City, and they were embarrassed in that game on Christmas night, and that eliminated them from the playoffs. 2022, the whole Nathaniel Hackett-Russell Wilson game in Los Angeles. We don't need to discuss that one any further. 2023, Christmas Eve night, the Patriots game. I don't want to discuss that one any further either. But, yeah, man, we've got a chance to rewrite history here with some of our misfortunes on Christmas.
And obviously Sean Payton had that game against the Patriots with 2023, right?
Yeah, that was Payton.
But before joining the Broncos, he's been undefeated. If I'm not mistaken, he's been undefeated on holiday games in his tenure with the New Orleans Saints. So something to kind of file away there.
I always think about that Alvin Kamara 6-touchdown game or whatever it was on Christmas Day. That was Sean Payton. So
that was Sean Payton. And as far as like the schedule takeaway, if you will, like for the Broncos and Chiefs, look, my biggest overall pet peeve for the Broncos like schedule is the Broncos are playing on Christmas. I do not want the theme of how everything has gone with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Broncos to where they're playing the Broncos, the Chiefs and Broncos are playing, I should say, like 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. Like, can we just spread it out, please, for once? Like, can we do something to where, I don't know, they're opening up the season in Denver, like, for Kansas City. Obviously, that's not going to happen because, the Kansas City has a confirmed opponent, if you will, for week 1. But I'm just saying, like, can we at least get something to where the Broncos are playing the Chiefs well early enough, to where you're not talking about something that's like 2 weeks or something, 2-3 weeks, and then they have that Christmas Day game. Like, please, can we have something that's so different, with that? So, like, that's probably my schedule takeaway, with that Christmas game, because I just feel like so much of the past, the Broncos have had to play Kansas City, let's just say this Christmas Day game, and then 2-3 weeks later, or 2 or 3 weeks before, they're playing the Chiefs at home or on the road.
Yep, I agree.
So now I will say this, and this is one thing we'll wrap up in as far as talking about this schedule. How many primetime games do you think the Broncos have?
So the limit's 5. I think they're going to get 4. I think that they will get 2 at home and 2 on the road. We already know one of them on the road. That's going to be the Kansas City one. I think the other one on the road is going to be Washington. I think they want Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels on prime time. I'm going to say that one's going to be a Sunday night game. I think they'll get a Monday night game at home, and they'll get a Thursday night game at home.
I think what would be a lot of fun is if they did Houston, like for Houston doing a primetime game, do Green Bay as a primetime game, and then Washington, and then of course the Kansas City game. So I think that would be one. And I will say I think that Denver has the chance, because I do think the schedule still is somewhat favorable for them. I do think that this schedule sets up favorable to where they actually get flexed into a primetime game. So I say 4, but I think it actually has the possibility of being flexed into a 5th one.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So,
and then obviously Alex drops in here an honest opinion about Jaleel. Should he, if you will, make the team or no?
So the question is, should he? If the Broncos want to give Harvey the maximum amount of touches, I would say no. But knowing what I know about the Broncos and how much Sean Payton loves Jaleel McLaughlin, I think he's going to make the team. And I think he makes the team over a guy like Blake Watson.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to say he does make the team, but should he? That's up for debate.
If the question is should, I don't think he should. Mm-hmm. And not to give too much hatred or for Gage to come strangle me into a screen, but the Jaleel thing, it reminds me just a bit too much of Philip Lindsay in that. Like it to where you just put him into the game, exactly what you're getting from him. You're getting a run play, or you're getting the simple pass out of the backfield, if you will. Like exactly what it is that you're getting. And the one thing that we know about Lindsay was he was just a bit of a struggle at times at catching the ball out of the backfield. And I know that there have been really good touchdowns, that have been made, from Jaleel that probably should not have ended up in the end zone, and they did, right? But there's just that area where he's still got to work on that game. He's still got to work on his hand catching out of the backfield, and that's where a player like Blake Watson and RJ Harvey, more so Blake Watson, is really going to, factor into this, because. I just think that when you look at it, should he? I really don't think so. I really don't think he should make this team, because I think ideally you look at Estime, you look at the Blake Watson game and Estime game against the Chargers, and then you factor Harvey on top of that. That's probably your best looking trio of a room. That is probably your best looking trio of a room. And then you look into for the prospects of the future. I don't know. I don't know if I will say this. Maybe he makes his team this year, but I will say I don't know what the prospects hold for McLaughlin of having a second contract with the Broncos long term. I will just say that. I don't know what the future holds for that. Funny enough, Big E, I think Gage may recall I mentioned about Le'Veon Bell, in his running style, not necessarily the agility, but the way he's patient and cutting. He's got some Le'Veon Bell to him. The way he's able to just kind of just set his feet. Christian McCaffrey is great at that as well. But I really do think that you're talking about a 1,200 all-purpose yards back, receiving and rushing this year for RJ Harvey. 1,200, or frankly, screw it. It is not outlandish to think that he's going to have 1,700 to 1,800 all-purpose yards of receiving and rushing.
He could.
And if he does that, he's going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
And, which, by the way, I'm sure you saw that, right? He's starting to get some Offensive Rookie of the Year buzz a little bit. Is that too outlandish?
I don't think so. I mean, there are bigger names out there. Obviously, you have the quarterbacks. You've got Ashton Genty. You've got Travis Hunter, depending on how much receiver he plays. So you've got those big names. But if RJ Harvey puts together a season like that, it might be hard not to give him Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I think we have to factor it to one thing. And it's one of the reasons why, frankly, should Bo Nix have been in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Yes.
And should he, frankly, have some arguments of winning?
Yes.
So if there's one thing that would tip everything to that, it's one word, and it's fit. There's probably no running back. It's one of the reasons why everybody, is falling in love with RJ Harvey's placement, in this draft, and that is fit. If you look just strictly overall for fit, like there is a very, very real chance, and maybe that's too much orange colored glasses, but like, we are talking about like RJ Harvey as an Offensive Rookie of the Year. We really are, like, because of the fit, the way that he's used, like, it is not out of the realm of possibility. Do we think it's going to happen? I don't think so, but like, it's not that crazy, folks. Like, it is not that crazy to think that Harvey might actually end up being a strong Offensive Rookie of the Year.
When the Saints drafted Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round, did anybody think he'd be an Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate? Nope. And he ended up winning the whole damn thing.
He ended up winning the whole thing. And, of course, there's that really famous statistic that's been rolling around, which is there's only 4 running backs that Sean Payton has taken higher, in his tenure as head coach, and that is Reggie Bush, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, and RJ Harvey. And how exactly did those players work out for Sean Payton? I'd say quite well.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for the MHRT Network page. And also follow Gage and myself over there on the X Twitter platform at Gage Madrid NFL. Myself at Cameron Parker PO. And to share it once again, we do have a swag shop. We have a swag shop, of course, where you can buy all sorts of merchandise for from the network. You can actually buy MHRT Network apparel, or you can rep your favorite podcasts like the 5280 podcast, or any of the others that is on the network, which we have a phenomenal group and network of shows on this network. So make sure you if you feel like repping, of course, anybody that is there. So please go search those links. I believe I have that either in my my Twitter page, if you will. So make sure you hit that. And nonetheless, also make sure you go support the boys. Go support the boys. Go support Gage and the work that he does over there for Bronco Syndicate. He does a phenomenal job. With Bronco Syndicate. And thankfully, they're short little clips. You can actually watch it. Before you go to work, after you go to work, when you're on your lunch break or something. Like, you could actually go and just watch one right now. So make sure you go check out Gage and the work that he does for Bronco Syndicate. Myself, obviously, I do another Broncos-related show, and that is going to be tomorrow at 7:30 Mountain Time, called the Mainly Broncos podcast. And
did you forget the name of your own show?
I was probably reading some comments here and there, but so make sure you go check the show that I do over on 7:30 called the Mainly Broncos podcast. We are going to be doing a schedule release breakdown, and we'll probably do like a quick schedule prediction, if you will, record prediction, if you will. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you stay tuned into that. It's been a lot of fun, and we will see you guys hopefully next week on the flip side.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.